Ina mana, ina waka, ina reo, irau rangatirama, tina koutou, tina tātou katoa. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa po namu te moana, kia tiri te karo hiraihi. Welcome everyone, ko Kiri Taka Ingoa. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here all today. Many of you have travelled from far and wide. What I said there was a whakatoki, which was really talking about may the light ever shine across your pathway. And each and every one of you is here because you're interested in making this world and our place that we live a better place for those that come after us. But it's also about honouring the people that have come before us. And so that whakatoki really recognises that you've all come here at pace, probably in a busy battling Auckland, and to the people on online, probably less stressful, but welcome. And actually, may the calm be widespread. So you being here, I hope that you take the time, the hour that we've got, to really relax into this conversation that we're going to have with these amazing panellists. These people are at the leading edge of, I guess, shining a light, poanamu, on something special that New Zealand's creating. And I believe it's worldwide, and there's leading stuff that we're doing. So welcome and kia ora. We are here because it's about better lives, better planet. And we're going to hear today from lessons and insights from courageous leaders, and I know that they hate that when I say that, who are leading social procurement and strategy and delivery. So kia ora and welcome. Why you're here, hopefully, is that this is about getting a warts and all session. It's actually about understanding kind of from people who have been doing it all the way from policy to delivery and in between about what's working and what's not, but what is the opportunity that we have with social procurement. So put your hand up if you're keen to hear about that. Well, you're in the right place, so good on you, and thank you for getting up early in the morning for that. This is not a celebrity endorsement, as someone said. Is that a celebrity endorsement? No, it's not. Cliff Curtis, all power, Ngāti Hauiti, and Aotearoa. But, you know, that collective responsibility that we have for land and people, and our place, is the key thing, kaitiakitanga. And we're going to hear about how this is being translated into business today. The format is going to be 2 rounds of questions posed by me, and then we go into a Slido. So we'll put up a Slido thing, so get your cameras ready. Hopefully you can scan, and we'll give you the details of that. And then we'll basically go into a final round of questions, and then we'll basically close out. You should be out of here by 9:30, all right? So hold us to that. Cool. All right. So with me today, as I said, my name's Kiri Top. I'm part of the Kiri Top Collective, which someone said it sounds like a cult. It's not. It's really, I'm trying to find some mates that want to work with me because I want to do some good stuff and be a good ancestor. So there's an invitation. With me today is David Maurice, who's the principal consultant at Clarity Business, and he's going to be running our Slido session. So if you can scan that, if not, hashtag Better Together on the Slido website. And that's for everyone online as well. So who are we going to hear from today? Well, we're blessed to have Tania Pouwhare, who's the Manager of the Community and Social Innovation at Auckland Council. Big round of applause for Tania, please. This lady is leading policy and implementation, and I believe in New Zealand, and doing some wonderful stuff that's being recognised internationally. Dave Colquhoun, who's Auckland Transport. Dave is leading big initiatives around the stuff that you're doing and guiding the Auckland Transport around the procurement. Look, in terms of what you're doing for Māori, Pacifica and other communities, I think it's wonderful. So great to have you here, Dave. Thank you. Well, round of applause. Yeah, good. Online, if you want to join in, might be a little bit empty, but anyway. Next up, we have Hermione McCallum-Haire. And I apologise for the way that I introduced you last time because I went, yeah, good. So Sustainability Outcomes Project Manager and at Auckland Council and also Healthy Waters. So welcome and thank you very much for being here. You've also just picked up a prestigious award, which we'll talk about very soon, for the work that you've been doing. So next up we have, I guess from a procurement perspective and responding to RFIs and RFPs, we have George Hulbert. George is the founder and managing director of the Clarity business, and they write responses for businesses who are responding to, I guess, RFIs and RFPs that have been put out by social procurement and the procurement process. Big round of applause for George. Awesome. And next up we have, I guess, someone that's implementing it, but this time from Fulton Hogan, who's Amity project manager, so James Weller. James, you've got a massive project out there, and we're looking forward to hearing about the stuff that you're doing and how it's working on the ground. So wonderful to have you here as well. And last but not least, big round of applause for James, please. Yeah. Last but not least, and you'll notice that we've gone from policy and sort of strategy all the way through, and everyone has a bit of strategy in them, into coalface. And these people, Adrienne Dalton from Te Whāngai Trust is the founder and co-general manager of Te Whāngai. They literally do stuff at the coalface. This is people who are from vulnerable communities who are benefiting from getting back into work and picking up skills and experience. So, just grab a seat. So big round of applause for Adrienne. Oh. So for those of you that have just joined us, welcome. You're just perfect timing. So if you're looking to get some questions, get your camera out, Slido, it'll be on the next slide as well. We are going to go straight into it because there's nothing like getting some answers. So don't worry, if you're taking your photo, it'll come up on the next slide as well, hopefully. Cool. All right. Hey, so round one, and I'm just to give some advance warning, I am going to Tania, who's going to start from a policy perspective. So, look, I mean, we're here because we're looking at better lives and better planet. And so how, in the context of what you do, what is it that you and your organisation are doing to bring that to life, that kaupapa to life?
Using procurement as a lever for generating better socioeconomic outcomes and for building a more equitable economy has been an incredibly useful tool. So it's not just about what we buy, but how we buy it is just as important as well. And the public sector is a major part of GDP. We're a major part of the market. And we have multiple responsibilities and legal obligations, actually, in that we're not just a regulatory body, but we are also responsible for the social contract. We're responsible for making sure that people have good lives. We're responsible for making sure that we leave the planet in better nick than what we inherited it. And this is one way. It is not a silver bullet. Yeah. I just want to be really, really clear about that. We are dealing with complex, wicked problems, and there is no single solution to this. But it is an incredibly useful way because we're such a huge part of the market. I mean, central government spends $41 billion a year just buying stuff. That's going to go through the roof. And the council spends $3 billion a year just buying stuff. We're a major consumer. So the choices that we make and how we choose to buy products is we can also use that as a lever to create employment opportunities, workforce development opportunities, and engage people who have traditionally been locked out of business into our supply chains to generate entrepreneurialism as well.
Mm-hmm. And I guess one of the things that I talk about is it'd be nice if corporates, talked with this, right? But the reality is they talk with this. And so that social procurement policy and strategy setting really appeals to that element, right? And so how does that translate? I guess, Dave, I'm going to throw to you now. And same question is, from your organisation's perspective, what is it that you and your organisation are doing to respond to the policy, and how do you bring that kaupapa to life?
Yeah, thanks, Kerry, and good morning, everybody. Look, as Tania said, using procurement as a lever is really the key here. And when you think about like $42 billion of central government spend, Auckland Transport alone, we spend about $1 billion annually ourselves on goods and services. So, that's a huge amount of spend just in this city alone. And what social procurement is about in a nutshell is about using that spend to create, outcomes beyond just the goods and services that we're buying. So, and making that every single dollar that we spend go further. Okay, and so you heard about circular economy and about making the dollar go round and round and round and creating further opportunities down the supply chain as we go. So from our organisation's perspective, it's we've got a couple of approaches when it comes to sustainability. Obviously, we're custodians of the transport network.
Yep.
So we're one of the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases. So there's a problem there, right? And we're trying to deal with that in terms of environmental stewardship and how we deal with that. Through the likes of electric buses and we're starting to step into things like green buildings and green roofs and things like that as well. And also looking after water as well is very important from an environmental perspective. But from a social and economic, it's using our spend to deliver broader outcomes beyond what we're buying, what we're purchasing, as Tania mentioned. And that includes creating opportunities for people and jobs, employment, creating long-term employment wage structures and strategies as well that will lead to reducing some of the inequalities that exist in Auckland today. And also making, as I said before, using that spend to down the supply chain for diverse businesses to try and lift the capability of those businesses and also create opportunities for them that otherwise they wouldn't have. And look, the thing is, if we don't do this, quite simply, we're not going to get ourselves out of some of the holes that we're in. And the thing is, if we don't do it, there's a cost to it. There's a social cost to by not doing this. And if we don't do it, who's going to pay for that cost? And the short answer is some other ministry in New Zealand will pay for that. That will be a Ministry of Justice or Ministry of Social Development or some other ministry. So I think it behoves us as the custodians of public money to use that money in a wise manner and find opportunities where we can reduce those sort of problems.
Nice. And if we go from, I guess, the strategy and the kind of the policy from your area, you've gone and sort of set here. We're needing to consume. We're needing to procure these things. And then I'm going to go, I think, to George now, because George, you're writing in response to kind of some of the RFIs and RFPs that are coming out, or the things. So what does it mean for your business in response to, what is it that your organisation is doing, and how you bring in that kaupapa to life?
Well, it's way beyond the response to an RFP or an RFI. In fact, it's almost everything else. What we're trying to encourage companies to do is plan, act, and do outside of those processes, so they're consistently doing this stuff, so the evidence is banked and is obvious, it's true, it's authentic, it's meaningful and real, so that when they get to an RFP time, they're doing it, they're living the life that people like Dave would like to see from their commercial partners, but also they've got the proof already sitting there. So really, for me, it's about trying to encourage companies and to try and give them structures and initiatives and connections through which they can go ahead and do that.
Nice.
So it's really simply putting structure and getting them to throw the old CSR plan out the window,
right,
and re-examining their purpose, re-examining what a company with this purpose then goes and does, and then going and doing it.
Yeah.
And as I always say, it's like my son and his breakfast. It ain't real unless he's taken a picture of it and stuck it on Instagram. So it's about doing that as well. It's recording it and making sure that it's been tracked.
Has anyone done that this morning, Instagram? I'm looking at certain people in the audience. Yeah.
Doesn't have to be Instagram.
No, that's right. Yeah. It shows your age if you're Facebook. Can I also just challenge that? Who in here is from CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility, in this room? No, one. Okay. How many are from procurement? Yeah, that's to be expected. So yeah, awesome. What about strategy? Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right, we're now going to go, I guess, we've gone from strategy policy to the implementation of that, putting out RFIs and RFPs and responding from a business perspective, at least assisting businesses to respond to a business perspective. So, James, from, you're at the coalface of delivery in response to that. So do you just want to talk about your role, your organisation's role, and how you're bringing that to life?
Yeah, good morning all. So I'll just talk a little bit about my experience so far. I started on the formal broader outcomes journey back in 2016 when we responded to a tender from Auckland Council Healthy Waters. for the Oakley Creek project. And there was a number of initiatives in there around working alongside Te Whangai Trust, who are doing all of the planting for the project, and also social employment. So there was a number of youth from the local area that were keen to work on the project. The council had put them through a 10-week training course, and we had the opportunity to bring them onto our teams and develop them and train them and mentor them and make them into construction people. There was a lot of failures and a lot of success, and we learned a lot through that process. But what it really taught us was that we were doing a lot of that stuff. We're a big employer. We employ a lot of people, and we employ a lot of unskilled people that are straight out of school, for example. So we do have those systems in place to be able to bring people into the Fulton Hogan family. So that was Oakley Creek, and then now I'm the project manager for Amity, which we started about 18 months ago. And through there, another formal process at tender time where we've got really good connections now with TSI, Iwakanoa, and Auckland Transport to make sure that we've got good supply diversity. We're employing people directly, but we're also working alongside Te Whangai again, who are then also employing people. So you've got that dual purpose where you're doing social procurement and you're doing social employment at the same time. So sometimes Fulton Hogan's not the best place to be employing people directly. We're better to procure a subcontractor who has better frameworks or better connections and are employing people to provide those broader outcomes. And then as a Fulton Hogan business, as a total business, we talk about our license to operate. And that's about working in the communities. We've been around for 80 years, so really sustainable business that has adapted, and we understand our place within the community. So down at Amity, for example, our head office is just down the road, and we've been there for about 50 years. So we understand our role within that community, our employment opportunities that we provide to the community, and it's not about measuring bottom line versus broader outcomes. It's more around if you don't have a license to operate from your community, then you've got no license to operate.
Yeah. Can you just explain Amity and the scope of that and what it is? I think for people that are here and who don't know, and also people online.
Sure.
Yeah.
So at Amity Eastern Busway is one. We're connecting to the Panmure rail station and building a dedicated busway all the way to Pakuranga Mall. So it's the first stage in the ultimate Amity busway, which will stretch all the way to Botany. We started construction last Easter, and we've obviously had a few disruptions with COVID, but generally on track to finish third quarter next year. So dedicated busway, large bridge in the middle, and probably about 150 people on site every day. So
and lots of planting that's going on as well around that, right?
Lots of planting,
yeah.
So lots of opportunities to bring subcontractors on. For example, through Iwakanoa, we're using ITC, who are a specialist traffic management team. And we've got Te Whangai there doing planting. We had a number of smaller civil contractors that we were connected through Iwakanoa and the tender process of Amity.
So you won the Supreme Award for the work that you did around a framework that enabled people to key into social initiatives working with you. So you'll give us a bit more detail around that. But picking up on, I guess, on what James talked about and maybe some of the waterway restoration, etc. How are you and your organisation bringing this kaupapa to life?
Kia ora, Kerry.
Kia ora.
Morena koutou. Look, in our space, we're transforming what we do in terms of everyday, maintaining and operating and delivering in the stormwater space. So we're really good at that. We know that, and we have to serve our community, and doing some of these things, some of these green infrastructure projects. James has mentioned Te Aotearoa in Mount Roskill. So we started that journey back in 2014, I think it was, and from a healthy waters perspective, and we looked at, instead of just delivering an asset, what else can we do? Because communities have higher expectations than just building something and then from us just walking away from it. So what we wanted to do was really work with that community, that hapori, and understand what their specific needs and requirements were. You know, what else do they need? What are some of the things that are really troublesome in that community? And we actually opened it up, and we were really collaborative with that community to find out what they needed and what they actually wanted. What else do you want as Aucklanders in this community? And they talked about things like, you know, youth unemployment was very high, you know, the green infrastructure space was pretty minimal. So we really dissected it and worked with. We did employment, we worked with Fulton, we worked with the local school, who was a very low decile, low roll at that time. And now it's just shot up. It was a decile 1, I think, or 2, and now it's gone up to decile 1, and now it's gone up to a decile 7 or 8. And, you know, Te Whāngai Trust, we managed to work with them to put a nursery on that space. You know, so it's about community. So, you know, from those learnings, and we haven't always been perfect. We've made mistakes, but we're learning from those mistakes because we're not experts in this space. But this is about leveraging relationships that you have, and we have long-standing relationships with industry. So we have been walking beside industry to ask, what else can you guys do? Because, you know, we can't do this without you, and like vice versa. So let's work with communities who know what they need and what they want to really deliver better outcomes. So this is about planet and people. So, yeah.
Nice. Really great stuff. And you didn't talk about your award, but can you just talk a little bit about that? And I know you don't want to.
I really don't.
But you should be very proud of it. So you just maybe, because there's a bit of a koha in that, right, in terms of the stuff that you've done. So I think for anyone in this audience, online as well, they'd be interested in it.
Yes. So this is about, for us, because we aren't experts in certain things, what we like to do, we really like to open up and be collaborative and work in partnership with others. So we pulled in a whole bunch of ragtag people who are just really passionate about better outcomes. And this is about working with industry again, central government, people who are really good at certain things that we need. So it's about putting a puzzle together and just really forging strong collaborative relationships and just working together. It's been really successful. So, you know, I think it's very humbling that, you know, we won a procurement award because we're not a procurement space. You know, we don't do that, but it's about having passion for people and for place, really understanding that and knowing, hey, we're good at this, we're not so good at this, but we can bring in others to deliver something that can actually be quite phenomenal, you know. So you have to be really brave about it as well. I don't think, we can't do that, because you actually can, you probably can.
Yeah. And the framework, where is the framework?
The framework is available. It's, we created a toolkit. It's a standard procurement framework for RFPs and RFIs. It can be used by suppliers. It can be used by internals, corporates, anyone, iwi, anyone can use it. And it's not a be-all, end-all for everything. But because what we modelled our vision on was around the Auckland 2050 plan, and then we've re-looked at it from some of the other strategies within Tamaki Makaurau, and it's basically, okay, what are the things that really matter to your strategic plan? You know, what do you really want to deliver? What else do you want to deliver? And we've just opened that up so it's nationwide. It's free online. Anyone can look at it, and you can find that online.
Yeah, and so we can post that out as well on the LinkedIn channel. So now, I guess New Zealand has a terrible rate of productivity, and if you in this room are thinking along the lines of toolkit, framework, etc., then there's an open source koha there that's been done by amazing people doing amazing stuff, award-winning. Right, and New Zealand needs to get better at being better together. So take up that koha and use it. All right, so thank you, kia ora. Right, we're going to move now because delivery is hard, right, and it's at the coalface. So I can't tell you how much respect and honour I have in terms of working with Te Whāngai Trust. So Adrienne, welcome.
Thank you.
You really bring this, I guess, this kaupapa of social strategy all the way through to delivery to life. Can you talk about what Te Whāngai does and how you bring what we're talking about to practice?
Okay. Kia ora Te Whāngai. Te Whāngai started about 18 years ago when we looked at our community and saw the house was on fire as far as environmental restoration. And we had the second worst social stats in the OECD. We lived in a community where jobs were almost impossible for our youth to find. And when we looked at our environmental work, kids that went to school with our kids were coming out of prison with no hope, no jobs, a criminal conviction, and no hope for the future. So in a moment of insanity,
Gary? Adrienne's husband Gary's here as well. Yeah.
oh, well, he was the other part of the insanity.
Yeah. Insane together.
So, you know, we looked at what sort of ancestors are we going to be judged as being? As baby boomers, we came from a privileged position. New Zealand Inc. had worked incredibly hard to pay off post-war debt, but we were sacrificing our people and our environment for a fiscal profit, and that process was being continued day in and day out. So I was working at the time in the courts and as a special needs advisor, and the bias, the cultural bias against our Māori and Pasifika kids was absolutely unbelievable. And so as a whānau, we decided that if we didn't have the guts to do something about it and show there was a better way, we were actually going to rue the day, because our grandchildren and great-grandchildren would not have an opportunity for employment, or our community wouldn't have equity or hope for the future, and we would all bear the brunt of that. So what we did, we worked with the kids for 2 years, and then when we lost a daughter, MSD came to see us and said, will you establish a trust and actually get support for the kaupapa that you're doing? But what we wanted to do was totally opposite to the current business model. So we turned the model on its head and created a community-driven enterprise. We accepted anybody in the trust that came up the driveway. And everyone has skills, but we just weren't harnessing them. Our education system, our justice system, our businesses were failing our people. Our government organisations were working in silos, and they were actually counterproductive. The money is in the system, it's just the way it was being spent. So we designed a quadruple bottom line. We had to have social, environmental, economic and cultural outcomes from everything that we did. We had to create a community-led business that would become hopefully sustainable in the long-term future. And we would do it by environmental restoration and awhiing people to develop their skills to create a legacy for their children and ongoing generations within an environmental space. The pastoral support had to be 24/7. We were dealing with people with compounding social issues, family violence, suicide, mental health was a huge issue, but there was nowhere to go and no support structures. So we created a whāngai support structure, and everyone that came into the trust awhied everyone else. We've been privileged to work with people that have had the courage to develop social procurement, because that's the hand up and the answer for our communities to pull themselves up from their bootstraps and develop our most at risk workforce. And instead of giving them a benefit and sending them home to dwell on their mental health or their addictions, they need to have a safe, nurturing place to build their strength and provide hope and opportunity for their kids and break the compounding social deficit. 16% of our kids are leaving school and we've got no idea where they are. They're leaving school as 12-year-olds on Kiwi suspensions, and their parents have got no way of knowing where to next. Thank you. how to support them. This creates a 16% compounding social deficit. If that was a fiscal deficit, we'd be up in arms and saying we're going to bankrupt New Zealand Inc. But because it's a social deficit and the money's hidden in the billions of dollars spent on justice, welfare, health and the likes, we turn a blind eye. But everyone in this room has got the capacity to work together as a collective and create a future for New Zealand Inc. And if COVID hasn't taught us anything, there's no hope for any of us.
Well said, Adrienne. And I guess what Adrienne really articulated is each and every one of you here has got up out of bed to be here for a reason. Better people, better planet. Right, and each of you has a key, a piece of pouanamu that shines bright in your organisation and in yourselves. How do we work together to be better together and a better country? And just to give you an indication of why we selected all these people, we moved from policy and strategy and the wonderful work that Tania's doing and others at the Southern Initiative, Auckland Council, etc. We moved down to Dave, and then we moved across into procurement and responding to that. And we moved into the delivery side across in the middle with Hermione James. And then ultimately, 700 people's lives changed who are no longer in the system, but they're actually working productively in nurseries, planting trees, and God knows we need more trees, and cleaning up waterways. 700 people's lives changed. That's the impact of social procurement all the way through, from policy to delivery. Right, thank you very much. So we're going to go into round 2 question. We said, and we promised you warts and all, because it sounds good in theory, right? It's bloody hard. And so we're going to, I'd actually like to go the other way. Yeah, go.
We're getting a lot of questions coming through, but keen to have more from the audience. If you can't go through on the QR code, although we do spend a lot of time on QR codes these days, just go onto Google and type in slide.do and the hashtag #BetterTogetherNZ. Please ask some questions. There's also ability to actually vote or indicate which question you're actually like to have asked.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Cool. So round 2, and we're going to go from delivery all the way up to policy this time. So, Adrienne, I'm going to start with you. We've said that we wanted to provide warts and all, and not milk and honey. So what are some of the challenges that you've faced in delivering social, cultural and economic outcomes across Tamaki Makaurau and Aotearoa, New Zealand? And what's one piece of advice, lesson, insight that you would give people here? Be blunt.
Yeah. The greatest difficulty we have is that we're awhiing people with compounding social deficit and huge complex issues and trying to create a sustainable social enterprise that is based on whare tapu whā, which is the basic requirements of life, belonging, contribution, and creating a future for their kids. And it doesn't matter which social sector we come from, we all love our kids and want the best possible outcomes for them. When I look around this room, how many of us in this room would survive on $18,500 per annum, total household income? The people that we work with to try and awhi and provide a future for, that's their basic income. The biggest issue that we have, policy is fantastic, intentions are really great, but trying to implement them in the grassroots and have compliance for contracts, as well as awhiing people with a 33% loss of productivity as we build them up to employment and we're paying them a living wage. To try and do that and create a sustainable foundation within communities is really hard work. We don't have the skill sets that we need, and we're really grateful to the partners that we have on this panel that have shared expertise and skills with us to be able to assist us uffing the people we do. Government contracts are impossible to get, the social contracts, because they're time driven, and we will not pick up somebody at risk and uffy them for 10 weeks and say, I'm sorry, your funding's finished now, there's the door, we can't support you anymore. So Te Whāngai strives to be self-sustaining. As a community enterprise, we generate 80% of our own income, and philanthropic trusts provide 20% of that income. Our sustainable income comes from infrastructure contracts, growing native trees, and the partners that uffy us. And heads up to New Zealand Steel, they were the first New Zealand corporate that said to us, come and visit us. I used to take teams there to do all their environmental work. Come and visit us. Here's your new hub. The next day, the money was in our bank account, and I had to ring them up and say, where the hell did this money come from? Can I please have some paperwork? Because if I got hit by a big yellow bus, there would be no record of where this came from. The relationship was built totally on trust, social need, and a need for us to pull our bootstraps up and honour our cultural legacy. So Te Whāngai is built on overarching Indigenous values of whanaungatanga, manaakitanga, and kaitiakitanga. We nurture the land to look after the people and give life to the people. And if we do that, New Zealand Inc. will have an incredible future. But we're only as good as our weakest link. And our weakest link is near breaking point.
Thank you, Adrienne. We're going to Hermione now. Same question for you. What's one piece of advice, lessons and insights?
I'm not sure how to follow that.
No. Yeah.
Look, from our perspective, social procurement is not easy. You know, this has not been easy, so I'm not going to say it's easy. But each of us have expertise in something. We're each an expert in something. You need to take that something, think about what you want to achieve, and really use that to amplify good for social outcomes. You need to think about things like sustainability, climate change, people and community. We can't do this alone. I've mentioned it before. It has to be in collaboration and partnership with others. And there's a lot of others out there that really want to partner with you. You may not even know it, but they're there. They're waiting in the wings. Don't think that you have to do this alone. You don't. I mean, you've got a bunch of people here that have been in this space for a while. You know, we're available. We really want to help you, whether it's, and it doesn't have to cost a lot, or it doesn't have to cost anything, even if it's just a coffee or whatever. It can be something so small, a seed. You know, in the water space, we're now looking at developing things like we have partnership with MSD, we're looking at employment. We started a pilot pre-COVID where it was, we looked at working with Fulton and Te Whāngai, and what else can we do? So we started a pilot where we're going to place 60 people into employment. And over an 8-month period, pre-COVID, we managed to just get 38 people into employment, you know, and then COVID hit us. So in a post-COVID world, it's even more critical that these little initiatives that you think, will it work? Give it a shot, because now what's happened from that seed is we've developed a program where we're going to place 700 people into employment in Tamaki Makaurau, and that's working with industry and through partnerships. You know, it seems like a lofty goal, but it's a small goal in comparison in terms of redundancies and what's happened to our communities. We're looking at things like carbon emissions, and we're developing a carbon portal in partnership with others to ensure that when we build and we operate, we maintain assets, that we're looking at those emissions and minimising carbon emissions, you know. And another thing that we're doing in our space as water experts is we're looking at water conservation and including that in our procurement. Like, how can we be very careful with the water? You know, why connects us to everything? It connects us to people, it connects us to place. Without it, there's no anyone. So, you know, it's critical. Think about what you're really good at, what your jam is, And you can amplify that for better for planet and for people.
And there's people in this room that, this network, this ability for you to connect with these folks is key. Right. Thank you very much. We're going to go to James now. So James, I'm just conscious of time, so we just sort of keep those shorter, and so we'll get through. I'd like to give 15 minutes for everyone from the audience. So,
yeah, I mean, a lot already covered by Adrienne and Hermione. It's a real learning process. One of the key things that I'd like to pass on is, from a delivery point of view, if you're employing people directly or you're procuring subcontractors, you need to make sure that your own organisation is totally set up to be able to do that. It's not a matter of just having one champion within your organisation and expecting that to work. You need to be pairing people up with, for example, supervisors or foremen that have that nurturing, pastoral, mentoring disposition, I suppose. So you've really got to make sure that you're not just trying to do things in isolation. Get the whole message across your organisations, because that's the only way that you're really going to be able to deliver it. And then the other one is, there's lots of roadblocks, lots of external roadblocks and even internal roadblocks. For example, setting up a subcontract agreement. We've got commercial managers that have spent a long time developing robust contracts that we use to engage subcontractors. You can't just pick a line and say, because we can't sort this particular insurance out, the whole thing falls apart. You need to be able to work through those roadblocks and understand what can be put in place to make it work. If you've got people that want to make it work, you'll make it work.
Yeah, and once you've done that, you've set the path for the rest of it, right?
That's right.
But creating an indemnity and clause that really penalises the goodwill that you're trying to create and the good impact, hard work, right?
That's right.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So we're going to go to George now. And George, from your perspective, what's one piece of advice or lesson that you would give from your perspective?
One of the things we see often when we go into companies and we ask them what their purpose and their values are is, invariably, it's honesty, integrity, and a can-do attitude. And I rather lose hope at that point. Because A, it's not a differentiator, and B, it's hygiene. What I would say is, how about thinking about values like get involved? Believe it or not, many of the organizations out there have a comfort zone problem. They're comfortable doing their work, but doing anything else takes them right out of where they're comfortable. So it's comfortable for them to bung some cash to the local rugby team. So I'm saying, instead of doing that, get involved. Get your people involved. How can you do things that matter to the communities in which you operate and involve people in your world? So it's trying to make it more of a two-way street. So my message to companies out there is get involved, do more, throw away the old plans, think again.
We've seen that firsthand at Te Whāngai, where you've seen senior audiences come in and go and see what you do, and it brings to life the talk because they see the do and they see the people's lives changed.
Absolutely.
That
that is absolutely it.
Hang on. Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much. Dave, we're going to throw to you. One key insight lesson from your experience.
Thanks, Kerry. Probably going to take the opportunity to say a couple.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot has already been said by the rest of the team. It's not easy doing social procurement. It does take a lot of hard work and a lot of persistence and patience as well. The approach we've taken at Auckland Transport over the last few years is a learning by doing approach. So the key there has been to be brave and be bold and to give things a go, and to take the lessons learned from that and apply that to the next project. As a procurement person, I'm bound by certain rules, etc., and ethics, but I've always considered, what's the worst thing that could happen? Am I going to go to jail for trying to improve people's lives? Probably not. I'm not really too worried about that. If I put my procurement hat on, and for the procurement people in the room, there's a really good link to some of the basic procurement, principles around planning, and also when you get into the back end of it in terms of your contract management and your relationship management. And for me, one of the big things would be that it's easy to write questions into tenders, and it's easy to answer to respond to tenders. That's the easy part. But what about when you actually get into delivery? That's when the rubber hits the road and it starts to get hard. And when you encounter issues, what happens then? well, that's when it relies on your contract management that you've set up for that contract and the relationships that you also have with the people. And there's some really good lessons learned. You know, we've picked up some huge lessons in that as we've gone forth. So for procurement folks, stick to your procurement principles. You know, good planning, but also make sure you've got the contract management and the relationship management set up. And the last thing would be, as picking up on Hermione's point, is you don't have to do it all on your own. There's some really good resource, and rely on your integrator and facilitator agencies and organisations. You know, the Southern Initiative, the Western Initiative, you know, Amatai, Akina Foundation, etc. There's some fantastic people with some really, really good experience and passion to help organisations and businesses through this. You know, and look, there's no textbook on this either. There's no student 101 handbook or textbook, is there, around social procurement? I don't even think there's a university course yet on this. So, you know, we're all learning by doing.
Yeah,
we're all in it together. It is a he waka eke noa. That is, we're in the waka together.
They're better together, and not being afraid to ask the questions. Yeah. Thank you, Dave. We're going to go to Tania now. Finally, Tania, from your perspective, what's one insight lesson you give?
Totally agree that this is really hard work, and if you're not up for leaning into hard work, don't do it, because you can cause harm. It takes weeks to get back on a benefit. If you structure something poorly in your tender, you could send a business to the wall. So one of the reasons why we've been so successful is because we understand economics. We use data. We've got a saying, hearts, minds and data. There is no point in offering a load of jobs in an area where overwhelmingly the family makeup is solo mums of young children. Why did you do that? Understand what the conditions of that particular procurement and size it to that. We understand the importance of advocacy. So we're not just in the strategy, policy, advocacy space. We're also in the doing space. We're in both demand and supply. So we've got that really good overview of almost like nose to tail. We've got Māori and Pacifica Trades training, and that's how we are able to transition people who are far away from the labour market into the opportunities that we've created through the procurement. We are dialing down on our employment stuff because we're going to enter a slack labour market. And so it is going to be incredibly difficult to do those types of things that we did when we had a tight labour market. We are doubling down on supplier diversity. In my experience of having been doing this for the last 8 years, and actually bringing it from London to New Zealand, supplier diversity is the gift that just keeps on giving. In the last 12 months alone, we have enabled $45 million worth of contracts to be awarded to Māori and Pacifica businesses. $25 million of that was during lockdown. Just hit, props to Dave and Annabelle. They were one of those public bodies that kept awarding through the uncertainty of level 4. Now, what that did for our businesses was huge. And so our businesses emerged having saved hundreds of jobs, but also created hundreds of jobs. Now, this is unprecedented for Māori. We are the first ones to be hit hardest and longest by economic downturns. The median Māori income has not recovered to 2006 levels. We are still earning $4,000 less than we were in 2006. This is the reality. This is what is all in our mind when we are designing and creating the requirements. So really understanding what it is that you're achieving. Resisting the temptation to just, every time we meet someone, youth employment, what are you talking about? Why do you immediately assume that it must be youth employment? Have you looked at the demographics of the area that you're working in? Actually, now it's going to be redeployment. If you want young people to have a job, you're going to have to create them. So for us, the supply diversity thing is a gift that just keeps on giving. For example, we've just facilitated Trail Group, which is one of our standout businesses, to get another deconstruction contract with Kāinga Ora. They've got 50 people on their site. If Kāinga Ora had demolished those buildings, there would have been 3. And this is absolutely amazing. Constantly amazed at the innovation that's coming out as well. So for us, that's the winning formula is supply diversity, and we're really pleased that central government has jumped on board. And we Aotearoa, which is our intermediary, is now national, and we are on all of the provincial growth fund and IRG projects. So we've got to get some more boots on the ground for that, because that's a huge job.
And if you haven't checked out Amity, then definitely check it out. It's amazing work and internationally recognised as well for the work that you've done.
Yeah, we're really proud of the work that we've done with Aotearoa, with our 400 Māori and Pacifica businesses, because we've done it on the smell of an oily rag and just sheer bloody will and determination.
That's innovation.
So now we're starting to reap the rewards of that. And we're part of a global movement, you know. Supply diversity is amazing. Its whakapapa is in the civil rights movement. And so our international connections are hugely valuable. We've got amazing relationships with Indigenous businesses in Australia. And we are eyeing our first international joint venture.
Nice.
Indigenous Australia, Pacific and Aotearoa.
Awesome. Well done. Big round of applause for all of these guys. We're now going to go to David. So David, if you want to grab a mic, and you've got a few questions in there, mate? Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Cool. So someone want to hand a mic? That might be the dodgy one. Is it?
All good?
Yep.
First of all, thank you very much, guys. That was fantastic and very inspiring. So keep up the good work. There's been some great questions. Thank you for everyone for putting them in. I'll try and go through as much as I can, although there are a few probably that we can probably answer subsequently to this. So one of the questions actually that one of the members of the audience actually asked was, how do we overcome business tendency to focus only on financial cost when deciding on procurement and start looking at positive social procurement? Maybe that's a sort of general question to the whole panel.
Who would like to take that on?
I'll give it a go. So this social procurement is a demand-led exercise, right? It is a door that can be only opened from the inside. So we have to create demand for this to happen, and then supply will eventually follow suit. So it's about using our consumer power. And for the public sector, it's about backing that up with regulatory responses as well.
Nice.
What I say to companies is, if you want to win work, you need to do it. It's mandated. It's a government top-down strategy. It's clear. It's extremely well written up. You got to do it.
I like to talk about that as well, because in our space, you know, when we're working with industry, we're kind of saying, like, this is the softy, this is the future. You need to get on board, otherwise you're going to get left behind. We need you, you need us. You really need us, because like Tania said, you know, we're on the inside opening that door. So this is the future. Please get on board now.
Nice. Now. Yeah.
It's about He Waka e Kanoa. We're all in this together, and it's New Zealand Inc. If our businesses want to survive in the future and be sustainable, you need a workforce, you need consumers, and you need to win their hearts. And we have to get away from the European haka, which is wallet, head, heart. And we need to embrace our Indigenous values system and look at who we are, what we stand for, and are we going to create a future for everyone going forward, and have a really sustainable and a country to be proud of. We live in God's own. Let's acknowledge it, get on with it, and work with the most vulnerable.
Can I add to that, David? From a procurement lens with that, and look, we're as bad a offender as a lot of other organisations, is shift your focus away from price. So, bring these requirements into your non-price attributes and tenders. But also, we're working right now on trying to implement a sustainable procurement strategy or framework at Auckland Transport, and we've got some pretty good top-down support for that. So I think if you can get that into your organisations as well, and provide the drivers for that, but then you've also got to bring industry on the journey as well. So you've got to work with your contractors and your suppliers to help them understand what you're trying to achieve and why. And if you can do that, you're halfway there.
Nice.
Cool. I'll stay with that.
Just for others.
Just a question, actually. We're a week and a half out of quite a remarkable election.
Yeah.
Do you think that the results are going to change the emphasis on this for one way or the other?
Yes, absolutely. So it was in Labour's manifesto. Minister Naya Mahuta has been an enormous champion of this, both in her portfolios of Māori development, but also as Minister of Local Government as well. The central government has already embarked on broader outcomes consultation at the moment. Does that need to be expanded out to other public sector agencies? There's a huge emphasis on this, and it is one of 3 priorities in the Māori Economic Resilience Plan for Aotearoa. And they've just given us a load of money. So I think, it bodes really well. TPK has set up an entire team just devoted to social procurement. So, this is going to start to become the norm. It's going to be a tool for economic recovery everywhere. So I've just been up and down to Wellington constantly. Yeah. And the key word is economic recovery, and this is a tool in the government's armour for that to happen. They're sustaining this economy, pumping unprecedented amounts of money into it. And so they want to make sure that they are, sweating every single dollar.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, we were talking to our central government partners last week, and we were talking about the election actually. And I asked, how do you guys feel about Labor getting back in? And they were like, this is good because we don't have to pivot and change our strategy. We don't have to, and we've also got some, initiatives, innovative initiatives sitting in the wings. They were waiting. They don't have to wait now. So it's actually, hopefully, it's going to be a lot easier, and there's going to be a lot more momentum behind what we do, so it's more meaningful and has more impact, and it has greater reach as well. So we're pretty excited, and there's another part of the government, the Greens, they're about the environment as well, and so it's just fantastic. They're looking at a green energy initiative and fund, which is, I think it's brilliant. So we're really excited. It's going to be a lot easier, touch wood, because we sit in these organisations where things should be easy to do, but they're not. They're really complex. So, this is one of those doors sliding open again for us. That's how we view it. So, yeah, I think it's positive.
Dave, sorry, just 1 minute. So it's all right. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, very quickly then, Tania will probably be closer to the source than I am, but Nanaia Mahuta has been to previous social procurement conferences, and the question has been asked, is the government going to introduce targets for spend with diverse businesses, Māori Pacifica businesses, like they have in Australia with Indigenous business spend with the state governments there. Now that we have a majority government, could that occur here in New Zealand? Could the government come out with a 3, 5, whatever % target? I'm not sure. Tania would probably be closer to the source, as I say, but that could certainly change the landscape on public sector procurement. But my question would be to many of the people in the audience here is, private sector spend is way bigger than public in New Zealand. So what can we do with private? As well?
Therein lie a great challenge. We literally have 1 minute, and I said that we'd have people out of here at 9:30. David, so is there a way that we can continue the dialogue asynchronously offline for you folks? That anyone wants to do that, we can post the questions up and maybe respond to.
I think we all want to have answered by the panel, so maybe we can put them to you and
respond. Yeah, awesome. Hey, look, folks, we started out this day with a little whakatauki in terms of kia ora te marino, kia whakapapa pounamu te moana. May the calm be widespread, and may the pounamu always shine across the water, in my bad translation of Māori. But in effect, you came here for a reason. And I hope you came here for a reason, which was about being a good ancestor. This is taken from Te Tā Ihu, which is top of the South strategy, some wonderful work that's been done down there. And they were asking, how do they as people be good ancestors? And so you got people in down there that are actually leaving chairs empty in the room and actually saying, when we make these decisions, what decisions are we making for the people that come after us? What decisions are you making now? So there's some thoughts. Hopefully today you've picked up some lessons, some insights, and some good stuff that leaves your pounamu, your bit of something special that you've got in your role, in your place in the world, and your organisation, that you can talk to others, engage with these folks, and we can be good ancestors. New Zealand can lead the world in this. You can lead the world in this. Let's do it. That's it, folks. Kei runga noa atu, which means onwards and upwards. Have a great day. Hopefully that you leave here with your pounamu shining, and that you're into the world and you're looking to make that difference. A big round of applause for our panellists. Thank you all very, very much. Really appreciate it. If you would like to see more of these, then please let me know. I'm sure that we could do some deep dives. We could get some other people in, or these folks might be keen to do that. But if you have some ideas about where you might to explore, then let us know. So go well. Mā te ua. Cheers. Kia ora.